Hello everyone and welcome to Autocrat, episode 8, Dodging a Bullet. Now, before we begin, maybe just a little apologies for having been gone for a while. Lots of stuff going on in both of our lives, but we're back now and we've got lots for you coming.
Yeah, we're back. It's been about a month by the time this episode goes out, I think, isn't it?
Probably.
Well, as my co-host here said, we've had a lot going on. We've had several illnesses and then both of us moved house, so not exactly the calm lives that are conducive to recording. But episode 8 is now on its way. Let's hope it doesn't get jinxed before the end of this recording. Let's see what happens. So as you said, episode 8, Dodging a Bullet. Now, this picks up the family story of Zeus where we left it, with Metis. Do you remember who Metis is? I imagine even our listeners might not. We've been away for a while.
Let's remind them.
So Metis is a cousin and consort of Zeus, so she is a daughter of one of the Titan couples we spoke about in the earlier episodes, and she helped Zeus overthrow Kronos by giving Kronos a draft which made him vomit up Zeus's siblings. Metis was, as a reminder of who her parents were specifically, the daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, so as I said, two of the Titans, and she was the first wife of Zeus. Zeus bedded Metis and she became pregnant.
Ooh.
Apparently, she was the most wise of divine and mortal beings, so the whole package. Now, Zeus can safely be said to have raped Metis, as supposedly she shapeshifted to try and get away from him, so he's taking a page out of Orion's playbook here. It's unfortunate we have to cover this topic again, but it will keep coming up. It's mythology and Roman history.
Yeah.
However, he did eventually bed her, and the fact of it is she's pregnant with his child at this point. Zeus learned at this stage from Gaia and Uranos that her children would overthrow him, so as we predicted, I believe, last episode, it's another prophecy from Gaia.
How different from usual.
Yeah, very different. It's a big
peculiar.
Yeah, it's a big departure from Gaia's usual repertoire of sitting there, presumably in a rocking chair, spinning out prophecies. Supposedly, Metis was destined to have wise children. The first would be a daughter, Tritogeneia, wise and strong as her dad. But Metis would then have a son who would overthrow Zeus.
Ooh, and we don't want anyone overthrowing Zeus.
Not really, because once you have power, it's generally preferable to the individual that they keep having power. Zeus was understandably afraid of this new king of the sky, who would have been the 8th generation of divine royalty we've talked about, by the way, and so he swallowed Metis.
Okay.
How the tables turn, you might be thinking. Kronos presumably looking on at him from Tartarus thinking, I'm so proud of you, son. Now, he absorbed her into himself, or swallowed her, according to one version in the Homeric hymns, at the point where she was about to give birth to her daughter Athena. Athena then became his counsel and his guide from within. Zeus's next wife was someone called Themis, although we're not going to talk about Zeus's other consorts and children here. Let's go into a bit more detail, though, about the story of his daughter Athena, because you might notice I've kind of brushed over that. At a certain point in time, after he'd swallowed Metis, Zeus suddenly got a splitting headache.
What could that be?
Yeah, and he asked all the gods to come to Olympus to try and figure out how to make it stop.
Yeah, as you would.
Yep. Nothing, not even Apollo's attempts at medicinal healing, actually worked on him. For some background on headaches, it's assumed they've always been with us, so it makes sense they'd be there in the time of the Olympians. In fact, we get a Sumerian complaint about them and a wish that the afterlife doesn't have any such pain in about 3000 BCE.
Wow.
Headaches were thought by the Greeks to be caused by malicious spirits, presumably those Pandora the First unleashed upon the world, which we'll talk about in about 10 episodes' time, I think, if I remember the schedule correctly. Aristotle thought that these spirits resided in the stomach and sent humours up to the brain to cause headaches. But back to Zeus. He asked Hephaestus to split his head open with an axe, either not able or not wanting to undergo the pain any longer.
I mean, that would cause him more pain.
Yes, but apparently it's a solution.
I mean, sure.
You might not notice the headache anymore with the incredible pain of having your head split open, so it achieves something.
It does.
Hephaestus happily did so, and Athena, already an adult, jumped out of her father's head.
Oh, so Athena was causing him a headache. I mean, daughter caused their dad's headaches, you know?
Yeah, maybe not in as literal a sense, but yes. Zeus and Metis' daughter was also called Minerva by the Romans, so Athena, Minerva, they're interchangeable. She was wearing full armour when she came out of his head, carrying a spear and singing a song about herself.
Because as you would.
It's that kind of self-confidence that the world just needs sometimes.
Exactly.
All of this, by the way, supposedly happened at the river Triton. But when Athena emerged from her father's head, fully grown, perhaps understandably, the gods shrank back, afraid.
I mean, yeah, they've probably seen weirder things, but this seems pretty scary.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we are on the ranking of strange things happening, presumably about halfway in terms of strangeness. There was a disturbance across the land and the water, indicating that a powerful new deity had been born. Athena would become the goddess of peace, war when carried out for the purposes of defence, and of sowing. Seems quite a random list of
Yeah, that's
things.
random, and war and peace, like, that's a bit opposites.
Yeah, Leo Tolstoy would approve, though. On this point of war for the reason of defence, Rome would therefore probably have loved her, so let's talk a bit about this in a mini tangent, because there's a Roman idea called accidental imperialism which ties in quite well to this. Supposedly, there's a 1997 article stating that defensive imperialism in the Roman Empire can be seen as an attempt in justification or hand-waving away how Rome got hold of her empire. This notion holds that there was no purposeful attempt to create an empire or policies which would create it. Basically, there wasn't a deliberate desire or set of laws policies which would result in empire, and it has been seen as an apologist view to the Romans themselves and their empire. However, a 2008 paper thinks that this is too simplified a viewpoint. The British Empire and its opinions are pointed to for this. Those who were against imperialism at that much later time could still point to Rome by pointing to the later Republican era. Equally, it could still be an argument which is hostile to modern imperialism rather than 19th century imperialism. So you can see there's this big debate about, did Rome accidentally conquer its empire or was it deliberate? And there's a big debate historically about whether either viewpoint is the case. But anyway, back to the presumed goddess of accidental imperialism, Athena herself. She would be the living image of wisdom, and apparently, according to one version I read, there was a female deity called Dullness who had reigned over the earth before, but now fled before Athena, and Athena picked up her sceptre and replaced her. This may be a literary flourish, as I have no idea who this refers to, but I like the idea of a goddess literally called Dullness.
Yeah.
Perhaps not the most kind parents ever. So, Metis definitely has a daughter now. Athena, right?
Yeah.
But what about this mystery son?
But that daughter's not called, like, the Vision.
No, that confused me a little bit when I saw Tritogeneia as well. I haven't gone into much research about this, I will admit, so if anyone knows, drop in a line at autocratpodcast@gmail.com. But what I would speculate is that Tritogeneia might be one of the epithets of Athena. So it might be that it's Athena Tritogeneia, and I've just mixed that up.
So, that mystery son,
Yes.
where is he?
Well, at this point, I'm going to mention something Origen says about the works of Plato, and this specifically comes from chapter 39 of Origen against Celsus. Plato supposedly says there was a feast to celebrate Aphrodite's birth, and places someone there we haven't talked about before, and this is Porus, apparently a son of Metis. By the way, Porus, in case anyone recognises the name, is also the name of an Indian king who fought against Alexander the Great at the Battle of the Hydaspes on the Jhelum River in 326 BCE. So you can see in actual history the name Porus does carry some weight, but maybe not this Porus son of Metis who turns up in one of Origen's works.
So is he the son of Zeus then?
Well, Porus is mentioned on Wikipedia as Metis' son, and Zeus is her only listed partner. However, I can't find an explicit reference to him being Zeus' son, so you might think by logical exclusion Zeus is his father, but I'm not too sure whether this actually is meant to be the case. But back to the story as it's mentioned by Origen. This story says that someone called Pania, or Poverty, came to bed at the gates, knowing that something was going on. Remember, there was a party inside.
Yeah.
Porus had become drunk on nectar at this point, as supposedly there wasn't any wine. Now, nectar is what the gods drink, and ambrosia is their food. As for this lack of wine, I'm not sure if this means wine hadn't been invented yet, or whether there just wasn't any handy at the feast. Regardless, Porus stumbled into Zeus's garden and went to sleep, sleeping his drunkenness off. Pania then hatched a plan to get out of poverty, and she wanted a child by Porus. She lay down next to him and became pregnant with his child.
If only it could be that easy.
Now, the story says that Eros was born from this, and again we have a different contradictory version of Eros' lineage.
Of course we do.
So let's explore some of those theories again, just because, well, we need to keep them all straight.
First off, a 2009 article holds that Aphrodite is the mother of Eros, and apparently Sappho was the first to make Eros a son.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Sappho is a poet from the 7th and 6th century BCE who became an icon of women desiring each other, with the word lesbian coming from the island of Lesbos where she lived.
Now, I checked Sappho's actual text, and Eros is only mentioned twice and isn't explicitly said to be Aphrodite's son. However, a subsequent source then elaborated on Sappho's notions for me. What we actually get is someone commenting on Sappho rather than actual text surviving from the woman herself, and supposedly, Sappho had stated that Eros was a son of Uranos and Aphrodite, so again, different lineage. Sappho may have been combining the two forms of Eros in Hesiod's work, his cosmic nature and his nature as being involved in love, so you get the sky and the love coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Simonides of Chaos seems to label him as son of Aphrodite and Ares. However, the first unambiguous labelling of Eros as Aphrodite's son is in the Argonautica of Apollonius. As her pseudonym of Kypris, Aphrodite scolds Eros, and this thereby confirms him as her son in the process when she unleashes at him. So, all told, we now have 4 different lineages for Eros. Quite confusing, I know, but that's mythology.
So that son of Zeus, supposedly son of Zeus, wouldn't fulfill the prophecy of overthrowing him then?
No, all I've got from him is just falling asleep drunk in a garden and having a kid with a woman called Poverty.
Alright, well, not really the kid that will overthrow Zeus. Zeus can rest in peace for now.
So, that's the end of today's tale, and next time we'll be turning to a very famous story which we just wanted to cover because we thought it was fun, the story of Atlantis.
Nice.
And after that, we're hoping to have a special episode looking at something a bit more whimsical. What exactly is the fatality rate of being Roman Emperor? How dangerous is that job exactly?
Yeah, just in case any of you wanted that job, you'll now know if it's worth taking.
Yeah, just think about that before you send your CV in. So, with that, that brings us to the end of today's episode. Was this what you were expecting?
Not exactly.
No, there's a lot of tangents, but there's a lot of just random information that needs to be collected.